We gather here as we do every time we meet to recognize that we are all welcome here. All ages, all sizes, all colors, all cultures, all genders, all sexualities, all religions or no religion, all types, all people, period. May you find a hint of connection, a sense of belonging here this morning, a small piece of wisdom that you might take into your life today. On this day in our tradition, we honor the story that begins a retelling of the last week of Jesus' life. It begins with a story of a palm parade, a story of a protest, of resistance. Today is a reminder that in the journey from who we are to who we want to be, there are moments of confrontation with ourselves, with each other, with the world as it is. It's every community's responsibility. It's our responsibility to stand in opposition to all that gets in the way of a full and meaningful life for all people. That sometimes means difficulty, protest, resistance, and that is what Palm Sunday is about. And so we light our candle today in that spirit, remembering that each of us, individually and all of us together, shine in our own unique ways. We use who we are, beautiful, empowered, strengthened people, and whatever resources we bring to ourselves and to the challenge and the joy of our living, we bring who we are, and we are enough. So may this candle be for us today a light that reminds us of our own light, our shared light, that we are born to shine. And may we be for a time fully here and present for ourselves, for each other, and for the world. Let's sing our way into community this morning.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Blair, your gathering companion for today. We gather on traditional territory of Treaty 6, homeland to many First Nations and Métis peoples, including the Cree, Saulteaux Sioux, Blackfoot, Dene, Nakota Sioux, and Métis nations of Alberta. We honor and respect the deep, ongoing relationships between Indigenous peoples and this land. We also recognize and uplift the sacred identities of two-spirited people, a term rooted in Indigenous traditions that holds deep culture, spiritual, and personal significance. As a faith community, we affirm the full inclusion of all LGBTQ plus peoples and commit ourselves to being a space of dignity, celebration, justice for all genders and all Indigenous people. In this gathering, may we walk in humility, love, and solidarity. Please join me in strengthening our intentions. We gather in gratitude for the gift of life, the mystery of consciousness, and our inclination towards purpose. In the world where violence shakes our peace, obstinance inhibits mutuality, and overt individualism diminishes community, we gather to seek strength in comforting our world with our spirited living. May we strengthen our intentions to bring healing to hurt, peace to violence, beauty to harshness, and justice to all brokenness. May we find courage and grace to live accordingly to values and worth of our common humanity. We pray as those born of light and love, that it may be so.
We would normally have a time for all ages, but today I'm inviting our youth, our children, to make their way to Kids Spirit, to Youth Space, either through there with Daisy, or Wes is heading to the Youth Space room there. We can all have a collective groan about that, I know. Oh. This offers us an opportunity to share a few invitations this morning. I want to make sure you all feel welcome and invited to our Easter gatherings that are coming up this week. This Friday, Good Friday at 7 p.m., we'll have a gathering. And then again next week, our Easter gathering at 10 a.m., the usual time. So please feel invited to each of those gatherings. And then the week after that, on April 27th, if you are new or newer to this community, you're welcome to our annual, is it annual? Annual-ish newcomers lunch, where we get the opportunity to serve you and to get to know you and to welcome you. So please feel free to respond to an email invitation you've got, or if you didn't get that and you're new, even if you're new today, put your name on a sheet and just let us know how many so that we can prepare that lunch for you. There are a few things from the community this morning. I think there's something about our Thrifty Treasures Market. Here comes Dara.
All right, I am back talking about volunteers. I have heard that people are disappointed that there's no paper sign up in the foyer, and I totally get that. It's just with all the donation sheets and the posters that we'll be distributing, we really wanted to save paper somewhere. So I've heard you, but I will be in the foyer every Sunday until the market, and if you need any help, I can help you sign up with my laptop there. Also, if you've seen the note in the messenger about my available times, that's a good time to come, and I can help you with signing up if you're having trouble navigating the site. Also, I don't know if you saw in the messenger, it's really quite near the bottom. I know some people don't make it that far. But there's a webinar being offered on April 23rd, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. for us. There'll be representatives from the Organization of African Instituted Churches, the United Church of Canada, and the National Council of Churches in the Philippines. And these leaders will be talking about their perspectives on climate realities in their areas. I thought it'd be really interesting if we could register together and maybe join in like the small hall and watch together, or it's free to attend, so you can watch it on your own. We could get together after and talk about it. I just thought that would be really interesting, considering we're wanting to save paper. So if you're interested, I'll have a sign up in the foyer and you can come talk to me. One last thing, I've talked to a few people recently that did not know that we had a Thursday resource group, and it's basically a chill conversation group, Thursdays at 6 p.m. in the lounge, and topics can range from what kind of routines are helpful in your life to why do we cry and why is it good. So it's quite a variety, and it's a really good place to make some good friends. So I hope to see you on Thursday at 6 p.m. in the lounge.
Gail is, Marg, thank you. Marg is joining us from the 100th anniversary planning team. Thank you, Marg.
This is choreographed. Me first, Gail second. So I'm Margaret Hetherington, and from the 100th Anniversary Committee. Well, 14 of us have been meeting since January, trying to lay some groundwork for how we at SSUC might mark the 100th anniversary of the United Church of Canada this year. And so I'd like to introduce my cohorts. I'm not sure who all can be here today, but they're going to stand in place while everyone's being introduced from the committee. I want you to see where they're located, so you might speak with them afterwards. So first of all, we'll have to go a distance to see her, but Tricia Little in Saskatoon is a vital part of the committee. Dale Irving, I'll mention all the names. Thanks, Dale. Dale, remain standing, please. Marilyn and Peter Blackall. Gail Simonson. Sheila Parsons. Emmy Henry. Gordon and Esther Oakes. Anne McCracken, our mentor and wise one. Dara Smith, Chris New, and myself. So this is your current 100th anniversary committee. We've been having a fabulous time, there's no doubt about it. Well, as you can see, many of us are what I like to call vintage. Some of us have been part of the United Church of Canada since the 1940s, the 1950s. So some of us are very old on this committee. Well, it's 100 years, and we've lived a lot of that. We have been having a great time making some plans. we decided to focus on 2 Sundays, June the 8th and November 6th. June the 8th is just 2 days before the actual June 10th, 1925 birth date. We're anticipating 2 spectacular luncheon meals. And, well, who knows how that's going to go. But we're famous in the United Church for potlucks. That's a possibility. Also, some of you will know that we've had a stone soup luncheon from time to time. So you'll want to find out more about that possibility. We're thinking about how we will honor our charter members and our cherished elders. And we're excited about how our children and our youth can be involved. So we, the Vintage, have started the process. And we've already planted a few seeds in the e-messenger and on the website. But today is our official launch. Now, today, we invite others of our spiritual community here to join in on our preparations. So if hospitality and food creation are some of your specialities, and I know they are, we're going to need you. And if you'd like to help with either spiritual gathering, please let Chris know or any of us on the committee. If you have ideas for 2 special anniversary projects, we'd like to join together in a justice-seeking action of some kind that involves all ages. And also at the same time, we would like to support some kind of a social justice fundraiser that would help others in our world flourish. The moderator has asked all United Churches to think about how to help others flourish in our thinking this year about being 100 years. Well, of course, we have some ideas, but we need further ideas. And we need to decide how to decide on what will be our best projects. So if you are a poet, a writer, a baker, a cake decorator, a dancer, an organizer, a host who loves parties and gatherings, if you are a photographer, a display maker, an ideas person. Did I say organizer more than once? I hope so. Please speak to one of us after the gathering this morning. Emmy and I will be in the foyer, and the rest of the committee will be here in the large hall. We will eventually have some sign-up sheets, maybe paper, in the foyer, but not today. There'll be some after Easter and some ways to use online as well. We just would like to get your enthusiasm today. If you have an interest, a specialty that you see might fit in, an idea, please let us know. We'll jot down your name so we can be in touch. Because you will have insights and you will have suggestions that we haven't even thought of. We as a committee have a dream, I would say, a dream that our 100th anniversary is an opportunity, a unique opportunity. How often will this come into our lives? A unique opportunity to think about our roots, to think about the branches that we have become, and to think about the growth that is yet to happen. We're going to be thinking about 100 years, but we're also going to be thinking about the 58 years that Southminster Steiner and its various forms has been a reality. So we think that together we can create something that will challenge us and inspire us in this, our 100th year. And we really look forward to how you will help this happen. And now Gail, who is our historian of the group, you know you've already been reading and hearing the gems of history that Gail is sharing with us. I want to tell you, her work has gone viral. No fooling.
Yeah, I thought I would put a lot of Southminster Steiner in it, but somehow it ended up going out across the prairies, so I had to limit that. But I thought, if we're going to celebrate, we need to know what we're celebrating. So I thought I would do some of the early history of the church in the Edmonton area. That dates back to 1840 and the arrival of Robert Rundle. He was a Methodist missionary and set up a little chapel in Fort Edmonton. He was soon followed by the McDougall family in 1871. The McDougals didn't stay too long either. They took off for Morley. But the name has persisted, as you know, from McDougall United Church. And other ministers soon followed, both Methodist and Presbyterian. The McDougall Mission was the first structure completed outside Fort Edmonton walls in 1873. And not long after, there was a brick building built, the first brick building outside the fort. In 1903, McDougall Church established Alberta College. This provided the very first high school courses in Edmonton, and a few years later, they established Alberta College South, which was the first university courses, predated the University of Alberta. But it was the first building completed on the University of Alberta campus. They had brought Professor Henry Marshall Torrey out from McGill to help set up these courses, and he became the first president of the University of Alberta. So education was an important part of the church tradition. The first music festival in North America was held at McDougall Church in 1908. Edmonton made headlines in England, in London in 1912, when they appointed Annie Jackson, a Women's Missionary Society worker from McDougall, as the first policewoman in the British Empire. In 2010, Edmonton's Bissell Centre celebrated 100 years of service to the community. It was begun as a Methodist mission, Pike's Mission, in 1910, primarily to work with Ukrainian immigrants at the time, but it has evolved into one of Edmonton's most significant social service agencies. The churches were already collaborating on many projects. In 1999, Pike's Mission combined with the Presbyterian McQueen Institute to form All People's Mission. Of course, it was like the rest of the prairies, it was struggling during the Depression. And fortunately, a donor from down east provided a lot of support to the United Church in Western Canada. Torrance Edward Bissell from Elnora, Ontario, was a manufacturer of agricultural equipment. He felt he owed his money to the farmers of Western Canada, and so he donated a huge amount. It set up many smaller churches across the prairies, but also provided a new Bissell Memorial Institute in Edmonton. It opened in November of 1936. It included a chapel, meeting rooms, and space for welfare work. In addition to its regular work, the Institute became home to many theatrical and musical productions, and there was a gymnasium which allowed the Institute to offer a variety of youth sports programs. So I think there's a lot to celebrate in the United Church. We're not just a church. From the beginning, it's also been instrumental in supporting education, social service, and the arts, and even women's rights. So let's all celebrate this year.
This morning I will be reading from Mark 11, 1 to 11. As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethany, Bethphage and Bethany, at the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 of his disciples, saying to them, "Go to the village ahead of you, and just as you enter it, you will find a colt tied there. Untie it and bring it here. If anyone asks you, 'Why are you doing this?' say the rabbi needs it, and we'll send it back here shortly." They went and found a colt outside in the street, tied at a doorway. As they untied it, some people standing there asked, "What are you doing untying that colt?" They answered as Jesus had told them to, and the people let them go. When they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their cloaks over it, he sat on it. Many people spread their cloaks on the road, while others spread branches they had cut in the fields. Those who went ahead and those who followed shouted, "Hosanna, blessing on the one who is coming. Hosanna in the highest." May we find wisdom for our living.
I had a little bit of a challenge this week. I thought, we're in the middle of a series on the wisdom of the universe and what we learn from the stars and other phenomena. Oh, but it's Palm Sunday. Which one should I ignore? I came up with neither, and we'll make the connections as we go along. How about that? I want to talk about inertia. You have likely experienced inertia this morning. If you drove here and applied the brake, you likely found that as your car stopped, you wanted to continue going, but your seatbelt stopped you. Or maybe you experienced inertia of a body at rest as you were lying in your bed thinking, "Can I get out of bed this morning?" You needed to apply that activation energy to overcome that inertia of just, I'll just stay here. The German astronomer Johannes Kepler coined the word inertia. He viewed inertia as a natural opposition to motion. This was influenced by old Aristotelian ideas about the need for a force to maintain motion and that objects resist being put into motion. It was not quite accurate as time would go on, but it was the basis for what Isaac Newton would eventually use to develop his first law. And I think we all know that. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. An object at motion tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. If not for this law of physics, the entire concept of our planet remaining in orbit, not just the concept, the reality of our planet remaining in orbit would not be possible. And so I wanted to explain that a little bit because this is the cosmic, and it's very simple. Believe me, it's no dark matter and energy like last week. This is simple. So I thought we would just learn a little bit about how gravity and inertia work together in space to hold our planet where it needs to be. Here it is.
Planets revolve around the sun because of two forces are at work: inertia and gravity. The law of inertia says that an object in motion will tend to stay in straight line motion, while an object at rest will stay at rest unless acted on by an exterior force. For example, if you have tried to push a heavy object like a car, you know that it's hard to get it moving. This is because it will tend to stay at rest. But once it starts moving, it becomes a little easier, as inertia tends to keep it moving. Gravity is the force of attraction between two objects. It's a fundamental force in the universe that causes every object to be attracted to every other object. When you jump upward, you can feel the force of gravity pulling you back to Earth. The greater the mass of an object, the greater the force of gravity. As this hammer thrower spins, we know when he releases the ball, it will travel in a straight line. But the handle and him holding onto the handle acts like gravity and keeps the hammer spinning in a circle. In a similar fashion, gravity and inertia work together to keep the planets in orbit. Gravitational force is pulling the planet inward, and the planet's inertia is trying to make it move in a straight line. This creates a circular or elliptical orbit around the sun. Again, the planet's inertia causes it to move forward in a straight line, while the gravitational force continually bends its path towards the sun. As a result, the planet stays in an orbit around the sun. It is a combination of falling towards the sun due to gravity, but never reaching it due to its forward motion of inertia.
Easy, yeah. Now, interestingly, though not posited by Kepler or Newton, our brains, our thinking, are subject to inertia. Maybe not in the way, not in the physics sense, but what we would call cognitive inertia. And I'm making a transition here. This tendency to stick to existing ideas and beliefs, like the gravity of the past, the gravity of what we've already thought and believed, to hold us in place. Our beliefs, our habits, even when they no longer serve us well, they tend to stick because we succumb to this idea that it's easier to think what we've always thought than to reflect on the chance that we might be wrong and update our views. It takes work and energy to overcome cognitive dissonance, just as it takes effort to stop a car or to change its direction. Whereas gravity is the opposing force that pulls our planet's inertia from spinning us off into space, change or new information or new understandings are the forces that act upon our cognitive inertia to intellectually stay where we are. Now, sometimes inertia helps us. After all, questioning everything all the time would be exhausting. We can't possibly. We have to pick our battles. But counteracting inertia requires another force and energy to act upon it. It takes a lot of energy to start to do something different, to change behavior, to think differently. Faced with competing options and information, we often opt for the status quo because, well, it doesn't take as much energy. We're already an object in motion in that direction. Doing something other than that would require a lot of us. The scientific method provides wisdom for us. In essence, science is driven by a desire to understand the world better. And this pursuit inevitably involves challenging what we already know and accepting new evidence, even if it disrupts the status quo. That requires energy. It also requires courage. For us, in our quest to be the best humans we can be, we have to encounter where our cognitive inertia is propping up poor behavior, bad habits, participation in unjust systems. So setting something in motion or changing direction or halting a current trajectory is difficult because, to borrow from the first law, it requires our intense energy to get something new going. It also requires honesty and self-reflection, something physicists don't have to deal with. Those are forces too, though. Important and necessary ones. You better believe it. Fighting inertia, counteracting the status quo, is not just a scientific principle. It is most definitely a major theme of the spiritual life. Aha, I'm making a connection. I did it. The history and story of our tradition calls this day Palm Sunday. I wore my palm shirt in honor of Palm Sunday. Like Christmas and Easter, there's ritual and tradition whose gravity pulls strongly toward the story of this day. See what I did there? As the story goes, Jesus is compelled to go to Jerusalem during the Passover festival. Visiting the temple was customary by any who could make the journey, and Jesus was a teacher, a rabbi. And what made this trip different from anyone else is that Jesus had started to make a name for himself. He was on the watch list, you could say. He'd been heard teaching such outrageous things as that people should have a spiritual life of their own. Imagine that. People should have access to the practices and rituals themselves, not rely on the priests of the temple to control their access or to control whether they were worthy or not. He was teaching about the radical idea of resisting the political occupation of the Roman Empire. Maintaining that there are realms of life and living that cannot be controlled. Empires don't love hearing that. He was teaching a radical inclusiveness that would erase barriers of gender and nationality, tribe and religion, all threats to the established order that would use those very clear separations as a means of control and domination. The inertia of the status quo is always strong. We remember that. So despite every caution to stay away from Jerusalem, the focus of all that would silence him, Jesus used some inertia and went anyway. That Roman occupying force were, at the time, making a display of their power to keep people in line. It was a big festival. There were tons of people coming to the city. The occupying force knew that and decided they had to make a show of force. So a military procession and a parade would do the work, would do the trick. It would underscore the might of the power over the people. So there were commanders on horses, soldiers in ranks marching through areas where there might be turmoil, where there might be a risk of trouble and rebellion. Because all of this, that is the work of the domination system. Show your power, keep people in line. It was happening in the military system. It was also happening in the religious system. Whatever it would take to keep people in line. So it's in this context that Jesus organizes a parade of his own. This one isn't a show of power. It's not meant to be a guerrilla group wanting a coup, wanting to fight the occupying force in combat. They wouldn't have had a chance. This parade is meant to be pure theater. Instead of a mighty steed for the leader, well, how about a young donkey that barely raises him higher than if he was standing up? It looks ridiculous. That's the point. Where are the weapons of this protesters' army? There isn't a sword or a knife or a spear in sight. Instead, they have what? Palm branches? It looks ridiculous. That's the point. So into this city comes Jesus, accompanied by his followers. Poor people, working class folks, women, foreigners, queers, social outcasts. It was a direct action of the nobodies of the time. An action against the occupying forces, a rejection of the status quo. It was an in-your-face mockery. Non-violent, but also aggressively anti-establishment. We're given hints in the story as to its drama and its plan. Did you hear when Blair read the story about this whole little concoction about when you go find the colt, say these words, and then they go and they find the colt, and they're asked, hey, what are you doing? And they say the words, and then the people are like, oh, okay, take the colt. It's a little hint into the drama that goes into subversive action. Speak publicly with speeches on the steps of the governor or the temple. Well, those very words are your conviction notice. Soldiers swoop in, kill now, ask questions later. But speak in ways that mean something to your audience, the ones who are beaten down and worn out. Speak to them in subversive symbols, in ambiguous metaphors, in secret code phrases, like listen for the one who says the rabbi needs the colt, and then give him the colt. What's harmful in that? Little under the surface messages, secret ways to identify each other through donkeys and cloaks and palm leaves and water buckets if you read more of the stories. And then you've got the seeds of resistance that can spread without drawing attention. And it called out to a mass of people who were hearing maybe for the first time that they are alive, that they are worthy, they are loved, they are important, and that someone has their back. Once you get a taste of that, some freedom, some liberation, they didn't want to let that momentum subside. See what I did there? Momentum, inertia. Never mind. Never mind. Okay, here's Brian Murphy, queer theologian, to give us another take on this Palm Sunday protest.
In October 1992, a scrappy group of people living with HIV/AIDS and their friends and supporters marched from the National Mall in Washington, D.C., where the AIDS memorial quilt was on display, to the White House lawn. They carried with them the ashes of their friends and lovers who had died of HIV/AIDS. In this news clip, you can hear them chanting, "Bring the dead to their door, we won't take it anymore. Act up, fight back, fight AIDS. Act up, fight back, fight AIDS." Shame, shame, shame. You see them tossing the ashes of their loved ones onto the White House lawn as they yell and wail and scream their names. I think it's important to remember that along the way we must pass through Palm Sunday. In 1992, that march towards Jerusalem was a march towards the White House lawn with ashes. What is your calling today? What are you marching towards to confront today?
Just to give a little more context, the funding for AIDS research at the time was being withheld. The issue ignored, those suffering dismissed. None of this would have been called out and overturned over the last 30 years without this same Palm Sunday energy. So many died of AIDS waiting for dignity, waiting for treatment, waiting for funding, waiting for action, as demonstrated by the countless families carrying the ashes of their loved ones. And now, 1992 is not that long ago, really. Look where we are as a result of those who work to defy the status quo. We're not in perfection territory here, but we're a lot further along. We wouldn't now be in a place where AIDS is treatable. We wouldn't be in a place where lives are now saved and hope offered in a diagnosis of HIV/AIDS now that is a manageable chronic condition. Let's not forget the power of protest, of symbol, of satire, of drama in fighting the inertia of the status quo. We could list so many subjects. And, Gail hinted at a few of them this morning when she shared some of the history of the United Church. She hinted at the role and the place of women within the church. She hinted at the place of being affirming to all people, regardless of sexual gender orientation, all of that within the church. All of these places where it took protest, it took work, it took energy. Here among community committed to justice, we take the wisdom of this day. The wisdom that tells us there are powers that dominate us always, be they political, social, personal, relational. We all come up against places where we're subjected to things, subjected to people and ideas and substances and attitudes, habits that have a hold over us. The wisdom of this day says to us that any of those systems or oppressors can be defied. And best not to fight those powers on their terms. Best to find the way that will help us stand for ourselves and each other. Defy the power pressed upon us, assert our humanity, work for change on our terms. So it's in community like this, committed to this just world, this is where we figure it out. It's in communities where we will always meet to figure it out. Where our becoming, our growth, our resistance, our freedom, our love are placed at the center of our living. Now, I know what some of you are going to say. Some of you are thinking that the days of taking to the streets and protesting are behind me. But look at how many of you were here 2 weeks ago at the Trans Day of Visibility rally. Many of you have been writing letters to your representatives on multiple issues. Look how many of you support the work of SSUC with your energy, with your money, to continue the decades of justice work that you've been doing forever. That support is the energy that others with passion and energy need to do the dramatic work on all of our behalf. It takes not just the energy of our action to go hit the streets. It takes our wallets, it takes our sweat, it takes our wisdom and our long experience. It takes our courage, our strength in each other. Because all of that is the counterforce. All of that is the inertia we need to counteract the gravity of the status quo and the sometimes inhuman things that status quo will do. The good news is that there are marches and parades to plan. There are actions to take. There are letters to write. There is wisdom and experience to share. There are picket signs and flags to wave. There are symbols to claim. There is a long history of our faith and our spirited living of justice for each and every person to uphold. We can never let it go. It's in us. We have to. We must. To echo Brian Murphy, where is our next Palm Sunday? Where is your voice needed? Where is disruptive justice required? This is who we are together. This is our story. May the spirit of Palm Sunday protest be in us all. and may it be so, whatever road that takes us down. We remember our tradition in ancient stories of Jesus sharing tables with everyone. Friends, neighbors, outcasts, refugees, disenfranchised. He was about sharing bread, sharing wisdom, sharing life. In remembering, may we be inspired to live those kinds of lives of connection and equality. So then our table that we have set becomes a place where we remember the lament and the bitter taste of hatred and rejection. We remember the withered grapes of prejudice and cruelty, the sour grapes of sexism, racism, ageism, homophobia, the stale and poison of war and violence, of occupation and denial of human rights. But our table also is a place where we share the sweetness of hope, where people step up to speak truth, grow in understanding, mutuality, perseverance. We need energy to be able to focus on acts of justice and peace and hope. And so this is a place where we nourish ourselves to continue that dream of the world, where we recommit ourselves to the values that we enact in our lives. At this table, we share the gifts of bread, where brokenness and the brokenness of our world and lives within it is met with our compassion. And we share in the refreshment of grapes, this fruit of the earth, that our compassion might be ripe enough to live lives of gratitude and compassion. So now our invitation. We're all invited. You don't need to be a member of this church or any church. This ritual doesn't bind you or commit you to anything other than what meaning and commitment you make to yourself. You may come receive a piece of bread and some grapes, or you may participate in your own way by sitting in your seat and enjoying the music. But know this, we're all invited. Regardless of where we are on our spiritual journey, where we've been, where we're going, whether we've been rejected or excluded from this meal before, regardless of who we are and how we identify, this is a ritual of belonging. So know that you belong to life and to each other, just as you are. And nothing says that like breaking bread with each other, like our chosen family, like our community. You're invited to share this food for the journey. May it give you energy to do all that you need to do.
never chosen to choose. How then shall I live? How then shall I live? How then shall I live my life? How then shall I live? Saw the world outside of my looking, felt the living hymn on the ground, sought to be at one with the cosmos, singing with its new old sound. How then shall I live? How then shall I live? How then shall I live this life? How then shall I live? I step outside of my walking, gazed upon the eyes of the soul, held the hopes and fears of tomorrow, found the pieces making the whole. How then shall I live? How then shall I live? How then shall I live this life? How then shall I live? Took a step outside of my walking, found within a beat that we share, walked with you the length of a lifetime, made of life a living prayer. How then shall I live? How then shall I live? How then shall I live my life? How then shall I live?
So let's go into this week, into this day, into our lives, knowing that we take with us all that we need. We've got who we are. We've got the strength of each other. We've got the light of compassion and energy to do the work of justice needed in this world. We'll do it together. We'll support each other as we do it, and we'll take the light with us.